No.
Okay.
We actually have to get an executive director.
Okay.
Yeah, I never want to be that person.
Okay.
I want that to be someone else. I'll always be the co-founder.
Heard it here.
Heard it here. Oh, you heard it here.
Contact.
Yes.
Dr.
And
Carolyn
if
King.
you know how to write grants, please, you heard that here too. Okay, definitely.
It sounds like a worthy project.
It is so good.
Welcome to the Spencer Covey Show. Thanks for tuning in. Please like and subscribe to the show.
If you are interested in any of our workshops or materials, please head over to spencercovey.com or patreon.com/spencercovey.
And now please enjoy this episode with Dr. Carolyn King of Reach Out to Youth.
Yeah.
How long have you been in Grand Rapids now?
Woo, 2007.
2007.
2007.
15 years.
About that.
Okay.
Yeah.
If 15, we're just starting out, so 16 soon.
Yeah.
Huh. How did you like transitioning from the east side of the state to the west side of the state?
So
How was that? You went to school at Wayne State.
I went to school at Wayne, then Michigan, and now I'm on staff at State. And so the interesting thing is I didn't know the west side of the state was another country.
But it is.
It is. It is another country. And I tell people who come from the other side that they could move to China and the culture would be equally different.
Yep. Yep.
But nobody warned me.
No?
Nobody
told
warned.
you?
Nobody warned me.
You didn't know?
They said that word conservative as if that made it something.
But you never visited? Nothing?
I had visited, but I was here with a Hispanic family, Hispanic
yeah.
black family.
Yeah,
And so that's a whole different culture.
They probably took you down Granville Avenue, and,
I had
and
no
that's what
idea.
you thought Grand Rapids was.
I had no idea. I think we were over there by John Ball Zoo or something.
Surprise.
Oh my God.
Yeah, John Ball's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had no idea. So, when Denise recruited me, I said, well, where do you live? Because I'll have one friend here and you'll be that friend. So I got to live near you. So that's how we ended up in East Grand Rapids.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Found the perfect house. And for my mom had to come here. And so that's sort of where the story starts.
Okay. And now here you are.
And now here we are.
17 years later.
17 years later.
We met at Trinity.
Yes.
You were giving a talk, I believe, on the limbic system.
Always on the limbic system.
So let's maybe dive into that real quick here, because my life as a marketer revolves around the limbic system quite a bit.
Absolutely. Everybody's life
Yeah.
revolves around the limbic system because the limbic system is the heart of the brain.
Okay.
So a lot of people think about the heart in our chest and they say things like, put your heart into it, right? Mm-hmm. Oh, I love you with all my heart. Mm-hmm. But actually, the heart that they're talking about is the limbic system. So we've got this brain hat here, and this is really cortex. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to get my Vanna White. Jelani? Will you hand me that brain over there, please? Thank you, darling. Thank you, Bam Bam. So here's if we were to take this and put this on top of here, this is like our, Can you turn the sound off on that? Thank you. So this is the limbic system right here. You see this? Okay, so if we were to slice my head in half and let that side drop, this is essentially what we would see on the inside. And you see how open this part is of the brain? That's the limbic system. This is the first part of our neurological system to develop.
Okay.
Okay?
Like as a child, you mean? Or like as a race? Like
as an embryo.
As an embryo, okay.
As an embryo. So when we are developing from a sperm and an egg, and we have those three layers, endoderm, mesoderm, ectoderm, this neural cord, which becomes our spinal cord, is what's developing. And then all this cortex, all of this stuff, develops on top of it. Okay? So this limbic system is that primitive. A lot of people like to call it our reptilian brain. This is that fight or flight, our reward system. This is where addiction is. This is where love, hate, all those intense emotions.
All the fun stuff.
All the fun stuff, right, is coming from the limbic system.
Yeah.
So that's where when people say, I love you, put your heart into it, they're really talking about the heart of the brain.
And I've seen that a a lot of people on the internet, I guess, claim that that's where the idea of the third eye comes from. Because if you look at the cross section, it looks a little bit like an eye.
So that's a very interesting thing. So the third eye, a lot of people think of it as our pineal gland.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So our pineal gland is, these little dangly things up in the limbic system are our pineal gland.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. There's one gland. And actually, you have this light therapy hat on. This is a great segue. Oh my goodness. You didn't even think about this, did you? Or maybe you did. So light therapy, what light therapy does, how it works, is your pineal gland secretes more melatonin when the sun goes down.
It does?
Yes, that's why
Okay.
melatonin, if you take, melatonin, it helps you go to sleep.
Sure.
Because basically it's what your brain will be doing when the sun goes down.
Yep.
Well, in the wintertime, in places that aren't equatorial at the equator, then what happens is your brain starts secreting melatonin earlier. So you're tired earlier, like 5 o'clock when
like
the sun
that.
goes down.
Yeah, wintertime.
Wintertime. And you're not really waking up until 8, 9 o'clock when the sun comes up. So what light therapy does is it simulates the daylight so that your melatonin levels go down and you have increased wakefulness.
Oh. Huh.
That part.
Well, that makes sense. So I thought people normally wore it to improve their mood. I fall right into your trap.
So back to this limbic system, right? So this limbic system secretes a brain chemical called dopamine. Dopamine is our brain's natural dope. Think of it as our brain's natural cocaine. Because it really is.
Yeah.
Cocaine hits dopamine quickly. So people who have done cocaine will say that it's like waking up on a sunny day.
Okay. Sure. I have never, so it's one of them that I've missed. I've avoided that one.
Well, I talk to a lot of people who have done a lot of substances.
I bet.
Okay. And so
Wakes up on a sunny day. That
Yes.
sounds really nice.
it does sound really nice.
And pleasant and not very edgy.
Not
edgy.
edgy.
It feels very wholesome almost.
You see?
Yeah.
And so what happens is, AKA sunny day, light therapy, a little bit of that
Really?
dopamine experience is increasing because it's all one brain, right? This
Yeah.
brain secretes more than just melatonin. It secretes dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, and they all talk to each other.
Okay.
They all talk to each
What
other.
is the mechanism in which they talk to one another?
The neurons,
Neurons?
yeah,
Neurons, axons,
all that. Yep.
dendrites.
Yep. Yep.
And they're encased in a myelin
Yep.
myelin sheath.
Yep.
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 I've been doing my
Yeah,
research a little bit.
Yeah. Yep. It's a neural electrical synaptic effector and receptor organ.
Wow.
I know it's a lot of words.
Yeah. Yeah. But it does both.
It does. It affects our movement. So we say hands move so that I can make expressions, mouth talk. But I'm also listening. I'm also watching. I'm also receiving information the same time that I'm providing information. So that's the receptor and effector.
So before we move off of drugs, because I want to get into myelination in particular, what is your take on, there seems to be a wave on DMT type of discussions. What's your take on that with the effects of the DMT in the brain? And go ahead.
So I can't say that I'm an expert on
Okay.
DMT. What I can say is that I've done a little bit of a dive into what's very popular, which is psychedelics right now.
Yeah.
So when people are talking about psilocybin, for example, which is mushrooms,
Yeah.
magic mushrooms, or ketamine, using this experience that we can create from altering our brain chemistry with psychedelics so that people will either have hallucinogenic or dissociative experiences. And those are just big words that means basically feeling like you're in a dream. Okay. So a lot of the research speaks to having a guide to help you
Yeah.
when you're on that trip.
Yeah.
so that you don't go into the dark side during
Yeah.
that time. And that has been very effective for treatments of PTSD and depression.
So it seems like with psilocybin, there's two different schools of thought that I've come across. The one is like take a 5 milligram dose once with a guide, which is a lot.
Sounds like it.
It's called a hero dose.
Oh, sounds like
It's
a big dose.
as much as you could or should take. Although I've never heard of anybody overdosing or permanently damaging themselves on psilocybin.
I haven't either.
But that said, there's that camp. Do it once, but do it a lot with a guide. And then it seems like there's the other camp that's more on like the microdose side of things, where just take a little tiny bit. Don't really need a guide. Probably won't even feel it. But you could do that on a regular basis.
Yeah.
Have you?
So the data is still coming out. Harvard is studying it. Johns Hopkins is studying it. There's a school in San Francisco that is producing therapists who help formalize the guide, therapeutic guide.
Oh,
for
like
that.
guide training kind of?
Guide training.
Okay, cool.
For therapists.
But the research on which one to do for whatever is still kind
evolving.
of... Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So what is depression and anxiety? It seems like I talk to people and everybody's got a little bit of it. You know, what's going on in today's society with that?
Yeah. So I'm glad you asked, because the whole thing about the brain is that we've just been so miseducated about this organ. I think people are scared of it.
It seems like it. Scared of your own self in a way.
You know what I mean? I think it's much easier to give credit to something that you can feel beating, because you can feel your heart beat in response to what your brain is experiencing. So it's easier to give credit to this organ, our heart, for what's actually happening in our brain, because it's hard to gauge that. So what you're asking is, how do we gauge our mood?
Okay. Yep.
Like your sense of normal, happiness, or anxiety is going to be different than my sense of normal, happiness, and anxiety.
Sure.
And so that's one of the big challenges.
So can we just pause there for a second? Does everybody have like their own version of anxiety and depression, you're saying then?
I think so.
Okay.
I think so.
So then I think what I'm asking is how does what kind of things can one do to change their baseline? I think that's what I'm asking.
That's a really good question.
Like if day after day after day, I'm feeling, according to my baseline, I'm feeling
worse. Yeah.
Then how does one mindfully improve their baseline?
Yeah, that's the word, is mindfully. So the first step is awareness.
Okay.
Like, you got to be aware that your baseline has changed.
Okay.
Because a lot of people slip into depression.
Okay.
And it kind of creeps up on them. I would say the majority of people slip into depression. It just doesn't hit them like a death or an accident, and all of a sudden they're like, whoa, I can't use my arm. Whoa, I can't use my mood. You know, it doesn't happen like that. It's a slip. And so the way we do in psychiatry is we have this shortcut of symptoms called SIGECAPS, SIGECAPS. And so the S talks about sleep, okay? So if your sleep is impaired, if you're sleeping too much or too little, that's a big sign that something is happening with your health. If you're not doing the things that you used to be interested in, or they no longer provide you a sense of, joy, that's a symptom of depression. So that's the I. If you're feeling guilty about the world's problems that you had nothing to do with, or anything that you had nothing to do with, that's a symptom of depression. If your energy is down, that's a symptom of depression. It's also a symptom of sickness, right? Just sickness behavior.
I feel like I have a strong case of ADD, and for me, I have to be really careful if I don't start something new.
Oh,
Like
yeah.
if I notice that I'm
Oh,
not
yeah.
into something new,
Oh, yeah.
that's a big like
Yeah.
real that's a trigger for me
Yep.
is that I should be onto some like
Keep it moving.
Keep it moving.
Keep it moving.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So then concentration, you were talking about ADHD, which segues into concentration. If you find that your concentration is kind of getting slippy, then find something new. Be mindful. Do something new to kind of get your dopamine, your adrenaline, your serotonin pumping back up there, because those are the treatments for depression. Appetite. Some people overeat. They crave chocolate. They crave
cream.
sweets. They crave bread when they're depressed. And then psychomotor. That's what the P is for in Siggy Caps. So people will get really slow talking when they're depressed. And it kind of creates a whole depressed vibe. Sort of like
I know people like that.
The slop is Zootopia.
I know people like that. Shuffling their feet.
And then the last one is suicide, right?
Yeah.
So that is that last S in Siggy Caps. And people, untreated depression is deadly, and people will kill themselves.
So I know people who have like their brain tells them to kill themselves, like
Yes.
audibly.
Yes.
That's what I guess I label as clinical depression.
That's one
That's just one.
of the 9 symptoms
Okay.
of clinical depression.
So that's probably like the worst case that you can get.
When a person makes a plan, has an intention to be dead, that's bad.
That's real bad.
That's bad.
Yeah. Yeah. I know some people like that.
Yeah.
And they struggle with it.
It's a struggle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you're saying that sleep has a big factor to play in that.
Oh, for sure.
We spoke before about this, and your short answer is that bad of depression could almost be seen as a sleep disorder.
Absolutely. Vice versa. So the neurologist, right? So neurology and psychiatry are all playing in the same field. We're all playing with neurons and central nervous system, peripheral nervous system. And so neurologists will often look first at sleep disorders as a cause of a mood disorder or ADHD. Psychiatrists will look at ADHD and depression as a cause for the sleep disorder. So it's kind of, this is where our little rub is between the two fields.
The equation has to be balanced.
Which
Yeah,
comes first,
right.
the chicken or the egg? Because they both can cause each
Huh.
other.
Why have the two fields of study been diverged, do you think? If they're both getting to the same.
So that is another, you got some, I see why you do these, because you got real good questions.
Thanks.
The divergence actually came, psychiatry was there first. And over a couple hundred years ago at the Salpêtre, all the people who had tertiary syphilis, for example, which is a
bad.
neurologic disease and causes you to become psychotic. People who had behavioral disorders like criminality, people who had depression, people who had seizures, people who had strokes. All those people were all housed at one big psychiatric mega center called the Salpêtre in Paris. A couple hundred years ago. I'm not making this up.
Yikes.
Okay. It was like 10,000 people.
What?
Yeah, it was 10,000 people. Okay. It's like a city, right? A small city. And so this is when like Babinski and Charcot and all these dudes were hanging out, because it was all dudes in the field back then.
Sure, yeah.
And they were like, I think that this stroke is different than this seizure, it's different than this depression, it's different than this tertiary syphilis, it's different than this criminal behavior. And I think we need to sort of tease this apart. So they started doing it, and they literally were keeping people in chains back then. Psych patients were in chains to stop themselves from doing self-harm behaviors,
Sure,
right?
yeah.
And harm to others.
Yeah.
And so they started to then break the chains of the psychiatric patients and really get to some healthy treatments. Because it was mainly fresh air treatment back then.
Yeah. Okay. So the nuances of it back then have led to like complete different
Fields.
fields now. what field got you interested in this in the first place?
What got me interested in psychiatry?
Yeah. What was it that, like, when you were, did you specifically go to school like, I want to be this, or did you like kind of
did.
lead you
I
did?
did. So when I was probably like, well, I'll tell you what it was.
Okay.
This sounds strange. So when I was a little kid, I used to take the legs off of granddaddy long leg spiders.
Okay.
And if you take the legs off of granddaddy long leg spiders, they still move after you remove them.
The legs.
The legs.
I was gonna say that little bump probably don't go too far.
If you keep one leg on it, it will, that one leg. That one leg.
Poor little spider.
Well, it's kind of,
Go on.
okay. So the thing is, so I'm back in the backyard, right? And I'm taking the legs off the granddad. And I'm just fascinated. Like, how is this happening? Well, now I can tell you.
Oh.
It went off.
Do I have
You
to
did your
turn it
30
back
minutes.
on?
No, you did your 30 minutes.
Oh, I did my 30.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, you can
All
take
right.
it off. Uh-huh.
There you go. Thank you.
Let me know what you think about if your energy level is, you only had an N of 1.
I feel fantastic.
You feel fantastic.
Yeah.
Good. So I can tell you why the leg still moves after it's removed. It's because all of those neurotransmissions that were happening when the spider was in fight or flight, because I had it and it needed to run, they all are still in that leg. And so that leg is still doing the thing. Wow. I know, right?
Yeah.
So
that is cool, yeah.
That is like my first interest in neurochemistry.
Okay.
Taking the legs off of
Is that the
spiders.
same thing with the chicken? Cut the
Yes!
chicken, and it's
Yes!
like doing the thing that it was
Yes!
last doing. Okay.
Yes. So then I would have conversations with people, and they would, I'm a kid. They're telling me their problems, and I'm interested. I don't know why I'm interested. I'm just interested. It was just interesting. Then I'm okay, you're okay. I'm reading that, handwriting analysis books, and by middle school and elementary school, I was even interested in elementary school in like paranormal.
Okay.
So it's all that it's sort of the final frontier
Okay.
of our brain.
Yeah.
Right? So if I were an astronaut, I'd be wanting to explore the black holes.
Okay.
This is that for me.
Yeah, the brain. What do people quote? The brain is the most complex thing in the world, or something like that, right?
I would
It's
say.
like the it's so complex we can't completely understand how it works, or something like
I
that.
would say, yeah.
I've heard before, like with the amount of synapses, they're in the trillions, and that makes it the most complex thing that we have to work
Yeah.
with.
That we know of trillions.
That we know of.
That we know of, it's in the trillions.
Yeah, that we know of. Yeah,
Yeah.
because there could be a whole different dimension that's measured.
Seriously.
Like they're saying DNA could be a quad helix, not just a double helix. It's just that we can't see the other two double hedrons.
We don't know what we don't know.
Yeah. What are some things in your field that people are trying to figure out right now? Like, are there any things?
So the big buzzword is polygenomic liability.
All right, let me try and figure that out. Poly's 2, genome, liability, 2 genes, liability. Okay, so if the 2 genes interact, which one's responsible for the thing?
Yes, and poly is actually more than 2, right?
Okay.
So, for example, even in cancer, right? There's not just a binary. Think about, people kept talking about binaries 20 years
Sure,
ago.
yeah.
And now we know really it's quantum physics, right?
Okay.
There's really not a binary. Everything is quantum physics. There's 0 and 1, but there's also 0.05.
Okay.
And there's also 0.005. And there's also, there's all these fractions of a fraction.
And with quantum computers, you can be a 1 or a 0 at the same time. Yeah.
Right?
So now with this,
With polygenomic liability, what we're finding is that, so for example, in autism, right? Autism's a big buzzword.
Yeah.
And we're seeing people who are on the autistic spectrum. Well,
Yeah.
it's a huge spectrum,
yeah,
right? And the reason it's a huge spectrum is because there's some genetics to autism, but there's also this polygenomic liability, which, depending on the mosaic arrangement between that human's composition is going to be the expression. And it's not just the nature of who they are, it's also the nurture of who they are.
And I think that a lot of people are claiming that there's a lot of stuff in the environment that's leading toward an uptick in diagnosis or...
The thing that's leading towards the uptick in diagnosis is knowledge and awareness. That is the biggest thing.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah. The people who are speculating about everything else are forgetting that we don't know what we don't know. So when we didn't know what autism was, we just called it mental retardation. We called people slow. We called them special. There were all kinds of names that you had for people who had intellectual diversity, for example. And so, people had savants. Remember Rain Man? Do you remember the movie Rain Man?
Yeah, you could count the matches when they fall on the ground.
All that stuff,
Yeah.
right? So that's a very specific skill set.
Psychologist or psychiatrist?
Psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist.
So that's the reason it's easy for me to talk about neurochemistry and anatomy is because of medical school. And
Okay.
a lot of people forget that part.
Yeah.
Because I look so neuronorm. They don't think I actually went to medical school, but I did.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So,
And that's the difference between being able to prescribe and not
Correct.
prescribe.
Well, not anymore.
Oh, okay.
Right? So like now, it used to be the difference is that you had to go to medical school to prescribe, but now nurse practitioners don't go to medical school. They go to nursing school.
Yeah.
And then they're advanced practice professionals, so they are able to prescribe.
Through
And
the
they can get doctorates. So you may be going to a nurse practitioner and they may be your doctor because they have a doctorate in nursing.
Are you able to consult with clients over the internet? Can you do telemedicine?
So I have patients that are in the UP,
Yeah,
have patients who are near the Ohio border.
yeah. But they're all in Michigan.
They're in Michigan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
'Cause it seems like telecounseling is the thing that's most easily done with reciprocal state rights. Because it's the easiest thing to study or practice in other states right now.
Yeah, and I'm not exactly sure because of COVID, there was a lot of movement.
Yeah.
So I'm not up to date on the most
I think they expanded
recent
it.
legislation. I know it's been expanded
Yeah.
because I can prescribe out of state.
Yeah.
And before, the only way to prescribe out of state was if the prescription was written in state and it was a chain pharmacy.
Oh,
But I can actually call a prescription to another state now.
yeah.
So I know that's been expanded and a lot of stuff has sort of loosened up.
Yeah. When I was deep in doing research for telemedicine, Amazon and Berkshire Hathaway and J.P. Morgan Chase had this joint venture to do telemedicine.
That sounds expensive.
It sounds expensive, but Amazon's the number one lobbyist in Washington right now. Could you imagine if those Amazon delivery drivers had a stethoscope and a blood pressure monitor and could do house calls after they drop off your package, and all they're doing is hooking you up to wireless stuff that sends it up to a physician? And then if they don't need the state-by-state physicians, they'll just have huge call centers in some state with like hundreds or thousands of physicians. Or maybe they'll just do it by telemedicine or just have them be distributed, but Amazon's trying real hard.
So wearable technology
Yeah,
is one of the hottest emerging markets, right?
quantified self.
Say that?
It's called quantified self. When all the individual mechanisms that you can measure your
Heart rate, respiration, sleep,
that whole
trajectory.
the whole thing is categorized as quantified self.
That's very interesting. New word.
I used to run the quantified self chapter for Spectrum Health in Michigan.
Oh, wow.
We had a chapter in Grand Rapids and another one in Ann Arbor.
So, my favorite saying.
What is it?
about math
Huh?
is the sum is greater than its parts.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So whenever people talk about quantifying things and my math never adds up, I always fall back to the sum is greater than the total of its parts. Because, you could do my blood pressure right now.
Yeah.
And you could do my respiration right now. And you could talk about my sleep right now. But still, are you going to capture the energy of me? Those are just going to be pieces of me.
I think that's why most physicians don't want to see it. Like most of them don't want to see your Fitbit numbers or like your Apple Health numbers.
I keep an open mind to it. I do keep an open mind to it. Like there's this ring, it's an Aura ring, and some of my patients are getting the Aura ring because it's easier to wear. Like I can't wear my watch to sleep.
Yeah.
So it's no sense in. But I have thought about, what if I taped it to my chest?
You can do that. You can wear like a Jawbone I don't know, maybe they went out of business, but Jawbone had a necklace you could wear to bed if you don't want to put on or you could clip it to like a nightshirt.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So all this wearable stuff so that it then can monitor my
Sleep rhythm.
sleep rhythms.
I don't know what an Aura ring is.
You haven't seen the Aura rings? So it looks like a hematite ring,
Okay.
but it's actually digital on the inside.
Oh, the digital ring.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know the name of it. And it like will do your pulse.
Your sleep.
Is it just your sleep?
I'm sure it does all of it,
Oh,
but
okay.
it does it's for the reason I know it is for sleep, because in psychiatry that's the thing I would want to know.
So if people are having trouble with certain things, you prescribe an Aura ring. Let's see how your sleep is.
I have not prescribed an Aura ring. I don't know if insurance covers the Aura ring. Wouldn't that be great?
I think some will. Durable. Yeah, I think some insurances, if they have good insurance, I think it'll cover it. I think it's worth giving a shot.
Yeah.
Especially if you prescribe it as like a durable medical good. And what you'll see a lot of times in consumer-facing medical devices is that they were derived from a professional version in the first place. And then they made it simpler, or they took one thing out so that they could make it to consumer. When I was at Spectrum, we were doing legislation to make it so that self-reported data wasn't covered under HIPAA. And all consumer-facing medical devices are self-reported data. So it doesn't fall under HIPAA, which is good for the devices, but it's not good for like the medical industry, because then they don't have to have they don't bear the burden of medical durable quality either.
Oh.
So you can get false positives and false negatives, and it can be all over the place.
Oh, okay.
So there's that going on. But then like there's distributors called like Henry Scheiner is one. The main guy's out of Grand Haven. And they've got this stuff that the Israel put together for their battlefields that they've now like simplified so that you can bring into a patient's home for a home check. But it was designed on the battlefield of the Gaza Strip. I met him at the American Telehealth Conference in Miami, like in 2018. Israel had a huge booth, and they were by far and away the most advanced technology at that conference for American telehealth. The biomarkers that they can get are second to none, because they're using them to save people's lives in warfare.
Well, we talked really about
Crazy.
trillion-dollar industries. You were talking about medicine,
Yeah.
and then we said Amazon,
Yeah.
and then we said defense.
Yeah.
So those are,
That's pretty much what.
trillion-dollar industries. So quite naturally, it makes sense that those have a merger.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Scratch your head type of things.
Yeah. Follow the money if you want to find the answers. Scary world we're living in, because there's so much money that's just not even real anymore. It's all just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's all just made up. Like, derive value. There's no burden to bear. We should not go on this path, but the Federal Reserve is neither federal nor a reserve.
Well, I have no idea.
Oh, it would, if you, so at a different point in time, if you Google Jekyll Island in Georgia, it's this island off the coast of Georgia that's now a state park. But in the 1920s, it was a hunting preserve for J.P. Morgan, for Rockefeller, for Vanderbilts, for the Carnegies, for the Firestones, and a bunch of others. But, you know, at a time, there was a dozen people running the United States. Like, if you watch that BBC or history program, The Men That Built America, there's only about 12 of them. And they all had a combined share on this hunting preserve called Jekyll Island off the coast of Georgia. And the only way you could get to it is by boat. You couldn't get to it by car. It's like four miles off the coast or 3 miles. It's a long way. And there's shoals. So even if you do have a boat, it's hard to get to. And they invented the Federal Reserve at Jekyll Island between the 12 of them to control the monetary policy. And that is still what controls our monetary policy today. And it's neither federal nor a reserve.
Oh my goodness. I want to put the visor on right about now. I feel like I need some light therapy.
It's true. Is that chair how you want it?
No, it's not how I want it.
There you go.
There we go. Thank you. Yeah, that's not how I want it. There are 3 themes to reach out to youth: brain, muscle, immunity. And so each theme lasts 2 years.
6 years total.
6 years total. K through 5 is elementary school. That's 6 years. So in the course of 6 years, an elementary school student who comes to reach out to youth would have experienced essentially what a medical student experiences.
It's wild.
In terms of the exposure of those 3 major themes. So 2 years on brain, 2 years on muscle, 2 years on immunity.
Are you in that order?
So it depends on when the school comes in. So Toledo and Oakland University William Beaumont, because we have 4 locations now, came in during the immunity cycle.
So you do it, and you do your curriculum, and wherever they jump in is where they jump in.
Correct. And everybody's on the same curriculum.
Okay.
But the medical students run it, so they get to customize it. So the first year they do it, they usually replicate an existing, and then the next time they do it, they tweak it. So like when University of Toledo did theirs, they have a simulation center. So they tweaked it at the very inception of it because nobody else has a sim center.
For the kids?
Yeah.
Wow. It's incredible.
They have a simulation center for medical students,
But
but we bring kids into the medical schools.
Oh.
That's why it's not like any other program where.
Let's hold the box up.
Yeah.
Should we hold the box
So
up?
this is their doctor box bag that they get
Yeah.
at the end of the day.
At the end of the first day?
Well, it's only a 1-day program.
It's only a one-day program.
It's a 1-day program. Okay.
Okay.
So the kids come in on a Saturday.
Okay.
Because medical students are busy. They can't like run a whole school system,
Right.
basically. Okay. But what they do in order to expose children in the area to what it is to be a medical student, not what is it to be a doctor, because they go to the doctor, you know. But what about the little kid who is in Detroit, Grand Rapids, Toledo, Pontiac, and they say, I want to be a doctor when I grow up. Well, who's a doctor in their family? Like, there were no doctors in my family. How do you even know what that means?
Yeah.
So we bring them into the medical school, and they see medical students who are young, energetic, look like them, in jeans, you know. And so now they're paired up in small groups, 10 or less, with medical students. And so we just finished immunity, which, look at COVID, came during our immunity program. Isn't that coincidental? I mean, our program was already set before COVID. We've been doing it, okay, for 30 years. And so now we're on to brain.
Okay, cool.
So what's going to happen is they're going to make these hats. Okay, all this is a color piece of paper and tape. Okay, and they'll already be cut out for them. But at the end of it, they get a box. Call it a doctor bag.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's a box. Okay, and in the doctor bag, they have a booklet that reinforces what they've learned that day. They get.
Here, I can help hold things.
Oh, thank you, Vanna.
Yep.
They get a doctor board.
Okay.
So this is, your clipboard
Yeah.
that, name, patient, complaint, and then OPQRS, T, and AAA. So this is what the doctor asks when you go to the doctor. What's the chief complaint? When does it start? What makes it worse? Where does it go? And so all of these things are universal to a physician appointment. And the medical students came up with this. Because it was immunity, they learned about the cell, so then they made a cell that they could eat.
Cool.
In that book is all about the cell. They get a real working stethoscope. There you go. Because we were doing immunity, one of the fun things that we did, and that's a medical grade stethoscope, by the way.
Yeah, it says 3M on it.
Yep, thanks to the Grand Rapids Community Foundation, they provided that. So this is a germ. Well, it's not really a germ. It's a simulated germ. Okay, but if I touch this and then I, don't wash my hands and I put my finger there, okay, what happens is you can see how germs spread. See?
I don't have any.
You don't have any germs yet, but what if I touch you? Now,
Whoa!
see? So they all got this in their doctor box so they could see how hand washing goes and make sure they wash the germs off. And it's medical grade. This is what they used to teach people about hand washing techniques in a microscope, so they could look at like plants and
There's
stuff.
a stamp too, right?
Yeah.
I see a stamp there too.
Oh, they got, so this is the eraser for the eraser board. And crayons, because there are things in there to color. And then they just put it all back in their little doctor bag.
Hey. So,
But they had classes too.
Long have you been doing the reach out to youth?
Ooh, 30.
30 years.
30 plus.
So how many physicians have started in the reach out to youth program?
That is a very elusive question.
Okay.
Here's the reason. Remember, I was a medical student
Yes.
when we started the program.
Yes.
Remember, this 30 years ago, when did the World Wide Web come about?
Right. 20 years ago. So,
So how would we collect the data 30 years ago?
okay.
And while I'm pursuing my medical career, having children and growing up, it was just a program. It was just an event. Who knew it was gonna keep going and going and going? So about 15 years in, we realized, oh dang, we're just gonna keep on doing this thing. I guess we better formalize it. I guess we better make it more than just a part of the SNMA, the Black Medical Association at Wayne. I guess we better make it its own thing. So at that point, we got 501c3 stuff put together and, all the formalities that need to happen to make it real.
Okay,
And expand it and
so
started
you
expanding.
were a medical student
I was a
that
medical
was
student.
reaching out to youth
Correct.
with some things, and it's morphed now into this
So
super
it was
established.
It was us.
Yeah.
It was the Student National Medical Association at Wayne. It's called the Black Medical Association, and we decided this would be our Black History Month program.
Okay.
And so we start with 40 kids, and their parents didn't want to just drop these little kids off. So then the parents stayed and were like, what do we do with them? So we had to create a parent program.
Okay.
Right. And so then when I moved here 17 years ago, I was like, man, they got a medical school coming here. Right. Because Psychiatrist Center got built while I was here.
Yeah.
And so then I was talking with the dean, who was then Marsha Rapley. And she said, oh, yeah, that sounds great. Let's do it.
Ta-da.
Ta-da. So here we are at year 9 in Grand Rapids
With state.
with Michigan State.
Nice.
And now we're at year we had our first inaugural year at Toledo and Oakland University, William Beaumont, and Pontiac, and Auburn Hills. This in 22.
It's wild how things grow like that, isn't it? What? How far are you willing to take it?
Oh, reach out to youth of the world.
Yeah.
Of the world.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are
other
you,
world.
are you ever? Would you ever transition from being a clinician to a full-time reach out to youth?
So it is definitely my church.
Okay.
Yeah, it is definitely my church. Unlike some pastors who take a salary from a church, I do not. I donate to my church a lot. So a good portion of my income goes to support my church. But that's the way I kind of think about it. Is it's like Martin Luther King had a purpose. I kind of feel like this is a big part of my purpose, is to make sure that
Okay.
we're educating.
I feel like that's an exceptional way to skirt answering the question, though.
No, I did never want to be the
Okay.
executive director of Reach Out to Youth. No.
Okay.
We actually have to get an executive director.
Okay.
Yeah, I never want to be that person.
Okay.
I want that to be someone else. I'll always be the co-founder.
Heard it here.
Heard it here. Oh, you heard it here.
Contact
Yes.
Dr.
And
Carolyn
if
King.
you know how to write grants, please, you heard that here too, okay? Definitely.
It sounds like a worthy project.
It is so good. So we have, to answer your question, we have people who came when they were in second grade when I was still a medical student. Dana LaPlatte, she's at University of Michigan. She's a professor in child psychiatry.
Okay.
So the funny part is, here I am, co-founder Child Psychiatrist, and here she is, one of the first attendees
That's a nice
who
story.
came when she was in second grade, and her whole cohort are all in, STEAM, are all in medical fields. Wow. So that was just a direct one. And so I've run into so many people over the years who say, I came to reach out to you. Like there are kids, and I call them kids, medical students, who are like, yeah, I came to reach out to you. Like some of our co-chair people now, their parents were medical students when I was a medical student, or a few years after me. And so their, kids are in medical school.
Wow.
So it's definitely, there's definitely a unrelenting touch point that Reach Out to Youth has on a person's DNA.
Nice.
I would say that.
That's a huge accomplishment.
I would say that. If you come to a Reach Out to Youth, you will not forget that you came to a Reach Out to Youth. It's sort of like, I would say it's sort of like Disney World for kids who want to be physicians.
Okay.
It's like it's nerd. It's comfortable nerd. It's urban nerd. It's got that urban swag. Like we have a DJ
Okay.
at Reach Out to Youth. So when they come, there's a whole vibe that gets created.
Yeah.
And there's movement included in like the beginning when they would normally just be sitting having breakfast. And then they go to classes. And the classes are very short. Like it's 5 minutes of instruction, 15 minutes of an activity, and then transition. So the classes are like 20 minutes. So it's constant. And they learn where do babies come from. Elementary school students.
All right.
Yeah.
It's like a bunch of TED Talks, it sounds like.
Oh, it is like a bunch of TED Talks for elementary school kids
All day.
with an experiment.
With like a break for lunch.
9 to 1.
Oh, okay. So it's more like
it's
4 hours.
It's 4 hours. Yeah, because remember, these are little kids.
Yeah,
So-
break for lunch.
Yep, have
Okay.
lunch. Yep.
So you probably got like 8 to 10 different speakers a day.
It takes 70 medical students to run Reach Out to Youth because we have about 250 kids. Whoa. Yeah, and their parents.
But how many 20-minute talks are there?
So they're about 5 or 6.
5 or 6.
Yeah, because it's a 20-minute, but then you got your transition time because you have to transition into another class.
Oh, sure.
So
Okay.
we call it 30-minute blocks.
Okay.
So they come in, they register at 8 or 9, and then we've shortened it to be 1 now.
Was it enticing to try and think about trying to make it into more than one day to begin with, or was it always?
People have asked a lot of questions. Why don't you put it in the schools instead of at the medical school? And I said, there are many, many studies that talk about cultural immersion. And the way to cultural immersion is to immerse into the culture. It's not
Teach
the
them
other
at
way.
the yeah.
It's not the other way around. You don't say I went to Spain because we had a Spanish teacher come to our class and serve Spanish food. No, and they all spoke Spanish. No, that is not going to Spain.
Yeah.
Okay, that you have to go to Spain to go to Spain.
Yeah.
You have to
Yeah.
go to the medical school to go to medical school.
Yeah.
You know, you have to be immersed. It's a
Gotcha.
whole vibe. You know.
Okay.
And so I'm very as you can see.
Yes.
I'm very intentional about a vibe.
Yeah. Yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Very meticulous about it.
I'm very intentional about a vibe. It has to be consistent through and through. And that's no different with Reach Out to Youth. It's a whole vibe.
Okay.
It's real hard to describe it because when the kids come, they feel warm and welcome, and they're apprehensive because remember their parents are probably lugging them to this Saturday
Yeah.
thing.
Come on, you.
That's at a school, at a medical school with people who are about to be doctors. I mean, I had one video because I was talking to this kid was on the phone talking to his mother because it was, I think, lunchtime. And he was like, yeah, Mom, I thought it was going to be boring, but it's not boring at all. I was
That's exactly what you want.
That's exactly what I want to hear.
That's the testimonial
That's
right
the
there.
testimonial right there.
I thought this was going to be terrible, and it was great.
It was great. So we hear that over and over and over and over and over again, which is why it gets contagious.
Sure. Yeah,
You
the kids telling the other kids in the school, like, kids love talking. That's
I mean, well, the medical students telling other medical students, and so
them
then
too.
right. So then the pre-med students have come, and then when they get in medical school, so then the little kids who age out, they become assistants. So like you got your medical students who are sort of like physicians, and then the people who are now in high school or middle school, they come like physician assistants, so they know the lay of the land, so they can be like tour guides. And then the little kids who are just our young learners who are actually doing it, you know, doing the program. So then it just kind of,
That's very inspiring.
it's fun.
Did that happen on its own organically, or did you take a nod from a different type of?
So 15 years ago, maybe 20 now, I don't know, many. I looked at junior achievement.
Oh,
Because by that time it was like, okay, it's not going away. And I'm like, so what other program out here is similar to this? I looked at junior achievement. They had been around 100 years at that time. I'm like, if they could be that big in 100, we could do it in 50. So I got 20 more years to get my goal.
when's the next event?
February 25th or
Okay.
something, Saturday of February in the 20s.
If people hear this, is there still time to sign
Oh,
up?
yeah, absolutely. Reachouttoyouth.org. The link is on the website, MSU registration. We always have the next one is the registration link is right there, and each medical school has a site on our website. That's what my IT department is over there in the other room doing
Okay.
right now.
Okay.
That's Jelani.
Bam, bam.
Bam, bam. He's over there updating the website.
Okay. So is that to say that there's multiple locations?
There are
all
4.
in one day?
No.
Okay.
Not yet.
Okay. So four locations, but different days.
Different days.
All in February?
No.
Oh, okay. So the
no.
next one's in February.
Next
but
one's in February.
There's others that'll be
Yes.
okay.
Yes. Wayne's just happened in December.
Okay.
OU's happened in November.
Okay.
Toledo's, I think, happened in April.
Okay.
And so we're at February. So what'll happen is it's all around the medical student's schedule
I gotcha.
because they run the program.
Gotcha.
So it has to go with their test schedules.
Gotcha.
So it's very organic.
Wow.
It's very organic.
That's incredible that you've been able to keep it that way for this long. That's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort.
Dude,
That's a lot of continuous effort.
dude, it's 12 weeks of planning
Yeah.
minimum
For a day.
for one program.
Yeah.
Okay. At 4 programs, we're at 48 weeks of planning. This is what
It can't
my
happen
volunteer. This is what I pay to do. Like I literally donate. But I also accept other donations, clearly. Like the Grand Rapids, Urban League, the Grand Rapids Community Foundation, Dog bought our stethoscopes 1 year.
Okay.
I mean, Sue and Bill, that's, the Matthews Foundation, St. Mary's Spectrum. We get a lot of donations. MSU, of course, is huge funding. We just got a check from Dr. Moncrief at Wayne. She's one of the physicians there. We've got, Dr. Tynes, who's the co-founder. So it does take money to run it. But I don't receive any of the money into my own pocket. I don't take a salary. We pay for our own lodging when we go to these places.
Really is a ministry.
It is.
Wow.
I'm not happy about that part, but
Well,
what you gonna do? You gotta put
Yeah.
your money where your mouth is.
Yeah.
So
So I'm imagining that Reach Out for Youth is a 501c3.
501c3, yeah.
What's your annual numbers coming in at?
We'd have to ask Ronnie that.
Have to
I
ask.
don't know. 'Cause
Okay.
I don't keep that stuff.
That
That's
way,
with
give
the
people an
accounting.
idea what size checks they
Yeah.
need to be writing to you
Yeah,
guys.
yeah. All size checks.
Yeah.
All size checks.
Uh-huh.
Did I say all size checks? Yeah. Because you know what I know how to do?
What's that?
Spend money. I know how to spend money. Okay. If somebody decided they were going to give us another $5,000, these boxes would no longer have a sticker on them. These boxes would be a more custom box,
Yeah. Michigan State has an incredible packaging bachelor's in packaging.
Yes, they do. Yes,
I wonder
they
if
do.
you could get them to.
So this is what our executive director, if I had a $50,000 check, that would start the funding for the executive director, right? Because they need to have that salary.
Yeah.
Okay. And then they could have a full-time gig of making all those meetings with
Yeah.
the different schools so that we
Yeah.
can have the data, backtracking, where are all of the people who've been and reach out to youth, what are they doing now? You know what I'm saying? I could easily fund a staff of 10. If I had 10 staff in the next 20 years, Reach Out to Youth would be at every medical school in the country, if not the world.
Whoa.
And we would have the data of what happens to these people over the course of 20 years. Oh,
We better wrap it up.
there's that.
All right. That's so good to see you. The boss just came in.
It wraps up like that, huh?
I don't know. You tell me. How much more time do we have?
Well, it's 12.
Is it 10? Okay. Do you have a 12 o'clock?
I do.
Okay. Well, thank you, Dr. Carolyn King, for joining us on today's
We
episode.
see who runs me.
Yeah. She said,
I do not run me.
well, that's probably good too.
I guess it is good.
All right. Well, I'm going to put up all your contact information, especially
Okay.
for the Reach Out to Youth.
Oh, please, thank you.
Is there any words of wisdom, any parting thoughts you'd like to share with the...
I have been having this little motto this year that I've been sharing with people, and it actually, I borrowed it from one of the Kennedys, and it is be sure to get a checkup from the neck up.
Amen.
Amen.
It's great to see you.
Great to see you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining. It's great. Right down to the last minute. All right, everybody. See ya.
Peace.